Okay, if I wanted to move on to the OneSKY project, is anybody able to inform the committee as to why that's been elevated to a project of concern? Okay.
Okay.
When does it circulate?
The negotiations have taken longer than wanted.
Just pin the tail of the donkey, mate, aren't we?
I'm sorry, guys. There's something with that microphone. We can't hear you very well.
Senator, the short answer to the question is why it was placed on project's concern list in August was that the negotiations were taking longer than expected and the costs were increasing significantly and the schedule was not being achieved. That's the short answer. Admiral Dalton may have more to add to that, but in a nutshell, that's why it's a project of concern.
And I think we were informed through another committee that the result was there was only one successful tenderer, but they were deemed to be not valued for money to the Commonwealth. Is that a correct assertion of why we ended up in that process?
Yeah, g'day Senator, Rear Admiral Tony Dalton. I've retained functional responsibility for the defence element of the OneSKY program. There was a range of tenderers responding to the request for tender that was released by Air Services, and the current tenderer that we're negotiating with, which is TELUS Australia, was the preferred tenderer out of that process.
Were they deemed not to be value for money? Was that an assessment made? I thought that came out of a National Audit Office report.
No, there was a process, Senator, where their tender was the preferred tenderer that went through another negotiating phase. In June last year, they submitted an offer based on their original tendered offer that had gone through a further negotiation phase. And the assessment of that offer in June last year was it didn't represent value for money. So there has been a degree of work done on that offer with TELUS in the intervening period that culminated with a revised price being offered by TELUS last month, and that is currently under assessment.
So it's quite a, obviously a groundbreaking project, as I understand it, combining military and civilian, control. Are they the only people that can actually deliver this outcome that you want? And is the only problem the price? Is that how it works?
They were selected through the result of a competitive process, Senator. Clearly there were other offerers in the world who felt that they could put in a reasonable tender, and 4 other ones did. And the TELUS offer was selected through that process as the preferred tenderer. There has been a degree of negotiation with TELUS beyond that. None of the tenderers were fully compliant with what Air Services, as the lead agency, were requiring. And there's been a negotiation to improve the degree of compliance in the TELUS offer. As I said, that in June last year, the result of some of those negotiations, when they came back with a price to be more compliant, didn't represent value for money. And Air Services, with Defence in support, has been working with TELUS since then to improve the value for money. Air Services got a revised price from TELUS last month. That's currently under assessment.
Well, I think because we've had a little bit of interaction with Air Services in another committee, I mean, they're not under the same budgetary constraints as you are in some respects, because all of their costs can be passed back to the travelling public and or the airlines, whereas you've got a finite budget, which I think you'd allocated funds against this project. So how have you gone there? I mean, are you in the process of allocating more money to this project? I think it was 414 million was in the original.
The project have received second pass approval from government some time ago now, and that has a budget that was approved as part of that process. Our contribution to the overall OneSKY program may need to increase, and we have made some allowances in the revised integrated investment program to accommodate for that increase. Our negotiations with Air Services have said that that's a finite amount of money that we're prepared to increase, and part of the discussions that we've had with TALUS through the project of concern process has made that abundantly clear to TALUS.
Okay.
That's subject to government approval of that.
Yeah. So is it true that this is a world first, so to speak, to combine military and civilian air traffic control under the OneSKY?
It's certainly a world first on the scale that's being done in Australia. So it will cover 10 to 11% of the world's surface under one integrated, harmonised air traffic management system, and that is a world first.
Is there any intellectual property that might derive value back to the Commonwealth in the creation of this successfully?
Well, there are certainly elements of the program that we've discussed with TALUS about how, if and when they are successful, and we do, and Air Services do move into contract with them, if they then on-sell that to other customers, would there be a return to Australia? And that's part of the negotiations that we're having with them.
Okay. And we know if the time frame, given these sort of difficulties you're having at the moment, is the time frame of slipping by months, years, or are we can we still achieve some project deadlines here?
Well, certainly the time frame has slipped. That's been part of the issue, and that's why it's been elevated to a project of concern. But inside our budget, we have some allowances to cater for the obsolescence that's emerging in the current defence system. That clearly is a concern for us, and there is a finite amount of time that the process can go on before we have to look at alternatives.
Is there an alternative though? I mean, can we maintain the status quo, or do we need to go down this path?
Well, there clearly is a risk with obsolescence to the current defence air traffic management system that needs to be managed.
Okay, so I understand that when it's elevated to a project of concern, other ministers become involved. Does that include the industry minister as well? I think I heard that in one project of concern where the industry minister was involved. Arthur, the
Sorry,
Senator.
Senator.
Who becomes involved when, which ministers are involved in projects of concern? Is that a defined role, or do you add other people in?
It depends on the project, Senator.
Okay. So in this project, who would be the additional ministers?
The Minister for Transport and Infrastructure and the Minister for Defence Industry and myself.
Okay. But I have heard of a project of concern where Senator Sinodinos's portfolio was involved as well.
A defence project of concern.
May not have been, actually.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but it does depend on the circumstances of the particular matter that is being dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Roberts.